Fujifilm 80mm 1.7 for the GFX worth it? Well, hopefully I'm going to answer that question, or, well, provide some confusion into that, and hopefully give you guys a cheaper alternative for that today. I'm Corey Vaughn, and first of all, an apology for not making a video in nearly 6 months. Basically, long story short, life happens, and here we are. But I'm doing it today. I have many more videos based on Fuji that I want to add to my channel here soon, and they're going to be coming much quicker now that I'm a little bit more free to do my videos. So first off, guys, this setup is obviously the most popular thing that I own in the Fuji community. So when I posted my video last time about my adapted lenses, this was a huge sticking point for comments, and people are wanting to know more about it, and I can totally see why, because it's very vague online about putting projector lenses on the GFX or mirrorless cameras in general. What you're seeing here is the Schneider Cinelux Ultra 80mm f2. This was a lens that was used in the movie theater industry for the cinema cameras that would project the image on the screen. And there's a ton of them out there. And now that the movie industry has somewhat or almost completely collapsed due to the pandemic, I assume there's going to be a lot more available, and third-party sellers are going to be getting rid of them at a high rate. So they are not the cheapest lenses in the world. The prices, they vary online. I mean, I got mine on eBay, and I want to say that it was between 75 to 150, something like that. It's been a while since I bought it, so I'll have to look back and see. And I actually made the guy an offer, and I bought two, because the one that you're seeing on the left, I dropped it in my first shoot with it. And the adapter setup that I have on there, I'm about to talk about that, but the screws on the holder for the lens, they were not tight enough, and the lens fell out, and so it put a small dent, and you can barely see it right here. It put a dent on the on the ring of the lens, and guys, I'm OCD about stuff like that. I am very protective about my cameras. You know, as you can see on the GFX, like I have a grip, and that actually protects the camera a bit. I don't like them touching anything. I don't like getting scratches on them. You know, unlike some of the Leica users that seem like they treat their cameras like Ace Ventura treated the mail packages. You know, they just beat the hell out of them so they can see the brass on them. You know, I don't want to beat up Fuji cameras because, for one, they're not built as strong as Leicas are, and for two, they don't look that great whenever they're beaten up. This lens and the adapters, they're going to be a huge investment if you try to buy that from someone online that has it already set up. I made a vague mention of a website in my last video that sells this setup, and it's astronomically, idiotically priced, and it would take an idiot to buy it from them. You would have to be a complete moron to buy it. And for those of you that are watching this, if you have, please see if you can get a refund, because this can be put together for very, very cheap and only a fraction of the cost of the new 80mm 1.7, which I'm going to address in a little bit. So what do we have here? We have the Cinelux Ultra 80mm f2. This is a lens that it's pretty widely praised in the photo community as far as projector lenses are, you know, being adapted. And it's just a question of adapting it to the camera. How the hell do you do that? That was the first thing that came to my mind. You know, what do I need to do to put this awesome lens on the camera? And what makes it awesome? Well, for starters, this lens being an 80mm f2, it's going to be really a bright lens for the GFX, especially if you're coming from using the native lenses. The 110 f2 was the brightest lens before the 80mm 1.7 was released, or as first announced last week. And this lens has a totally different character to the 110 because it's wider. And that wider field of view is going to give you a look very similar to your Contax 645, which also has a Zeiss. I want to say that's a planar lens, planar, however you say it. It's a 80mm f2. This has been likened to that look. It's very, very similar to the look and feel of that lens. Now, for those of you that are not aware or they're unfamiliar with projector lenses, guys, these lenses, and let me stand up. I'm going to start doing a little PowerPoint here. These lenses do not have an aperture diaphragm on the inside. Okay, so you can't control the aperture. They're a constant, wide open f2, and now that can be an advantage in a lot of ways. But then it can be a disadvantage in others, especially if you're trying to do landscapes. But what the hell are you doing landscapes with a projector lens anyway? What this is good for is for doing portraits. It's for what my specialty is. That's what I do for a living, is doing portraits. I've used this lens a couple of times during weddings, but when you're using this setup, it is not going to be a wildlife, sports, or any sort of fast-paced shooting. This takes a long time to focus, and you need a subject that is either lifeless or that can be really still for you. And as long as they're able to do that, you're going to get some of the most incredible images that you've ever seen. The quality of the optics in this lens is, well, there's a reason that Schneider makes lenses for phase 1, and you can tell by the quality of this. It's a very sharp lens. Before you add any filters or any post-processing to your images, you get very sharp photos at f2. And I was astounded when I first used it as to how easy it was to get your subject in focus. Something about the 80mm f2 is just very, it's pretty much perfect for portrait photography. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the adapter. And what do you need to do? How the hell do you put this thing together and make this thing work? For starters, I'm just going to point here. This is my filter that I have on it. And yes, this is electrical tape. I've used electrical tape to secure the filter on. I had to do a step-up ring for this lens. This is a very odd thread pattern, and there is no, that I'm aware of, there's no step-up rings that you can purchase that will screw into these that will fit, because the thread, I don't know if it's actually a thread pattern that you would screw something in. It obviously is, but it's not for your typical threading that you would normally put on the front of a lens to put a filter on. And coincidentally, the filter that I have, it's the Tiffin Pro Mist. These are very popular. All the hipsters online are using them, so there you go. This one is an older one, and it's one that did not come with a thread on it. So I had to put it in a step-up ring and actually attach it. So instead of gluing it or doing something really stupid or have a big-ass clamp on it, I decided just to use the electrical tape because it leaves minimal residue when I take it off. And I keep this on here all the time anyway. I don't need to take it off, and plus it's going to act as a dust protector from the lens itself. So it works. Well, once again, I've got two of these because of the little dent right here. I'm going to have this fixed eventually, but I just couldn't stand to look at it any longer. Actually, the second copy that I got was in better condition than the first one, and this lens is beautiful. And I might end up selling it because there's nothing wrong with it. When it fell, it hit a soft part of the ground. It was on grass when it fell, but somehow it managed to put a small dent in here. And this is Ruby. Hello, Ruby. You can't have this lens. No. You don't have enough money to buy it. When it comes to the adapter, there are currently 4 pieces on here. And I'm not going to take it apart, but I am going to take it off the camera and I'm going to show you exactly what these are. I'm also going to put links in the description of this video as to exactly what these pieces are. I haven't checked here recently to see if they're still available online, but I assume they are. So I'm going to send you the links to them, and hopefully if you're interested in doing this setup, you can buy it yourself. When I did my last video, I didn't have all of this stuff, and that's why I didn't address it then. But let's take a look here. So this is the back, and you can see that these, well, let's start at the front. This is the adapter that is actually going to hold the lens in place. And it has these little screws, and you can use an Allen wrench to tighten them down. Use the Allen wrench when you tighten this down. Do not hand tighten it, or that lens is going to fall out, and the same damn thing is going to happen to you as it did to me, and you're going to have either a busted, broken lens, or it's going to have just a teeny tiny ding on the side of it that irks the hell out of you. So tighten it down with an Allen wrench. It has a brass coupler on the inside that protects the lens, so that if you, as you tighten, you're not going to be scratching the hell out of the lens itself. And there's very little play. This is the perfect size for this lens, and it's pretty much made for it. And the size on here, this is an M65, which is the size of this opening, and it's an M65 thread, excuse me, and a 71 mil opening on the front. That's the size of this part of the lens right here that has to be seated in there. Okay, so the rest of these pieces are focusing helicoids. There's 2 of them. All right, and let me make sure I've got the sizing right. This company was off of eBay, and I don't want to go on a rant about this, but the reason that these were not in the video earlier was because I had to order these from China. There is no company in America that makes these. You can't find them in America anywhere. They have to come from China. So when you order stuff from China, you have to wait a month or even longer to get them. And unfortunately for me, I only ordered one of them. And this is the PhotoFox M65 to M65 adapter. And this one is capable of expanding, let's see what it says, 25 to 55 millimeters. Okay, so with each one of these, I'm just going to go all the way with it. This is how much you have of play. So that it expands out this much. Well, the idea of this is, if you know anything about lenses, and even if you don't, I'm going to tell you, you want to be able to achieve infinity focus with this, and also you want to have as close focusing as possible so you can do macro shots. Well, with only one of these, if I were to take this off, and let's see if it will come off. I said I wasn't going to take it apart, but I will. I only ordered one, and this happened, okay? If I tried to put this on the camera like this, it's going to hit the sensor and ruin the camera, okay? So I had to have another one to make enough space between the lens and the camera for this to work. Now, that being said, there are other adapters, there are other helicoids that are made that you can get this in only just one helicoid that is bigger. But I don't know if it's large enough in practice to make this work. So that's why I have 2 of them. I've not used the other one yet. So this is what worked for me. And the last but not least, you have the mount adapter on the back, this little piece here. And it just screws into the helicoids here. And once again, I'm going to put it on the description so that you can see it. It's made very well. No issues that I've had at all about fitting it onto the camera. It just goes right back in here just like your native lens would, and you're good to go. The practice of focusing this, it's sort of an acquired taste. It's something that you're going to have to get used to, because when using it in the studio, you've got all the time in the world. You can tell your model to just be patient with you so you can nail focus. I usually tend to use the front helicoid to achieve focus first. Sometimes you have to go all the way out with it and then bring the other one out some too, so that you, depending on how close you are to your subject. And I love close focused images to the face. And I don't like getting all up in someone's mug. So, if with this, you've got more than infinity. So you've got a lot of flexibility there with focusing on your subject, if that makes sense. And in these images that I'm showing you on here, you're going to see the character of the lens. I didn't really touch on that as much, but there's a huge debate online about the medium format look. Is a myth, according to some. And it's not. And to give you an example and to prove that this is not the case, I'm filming this video on the X-T3 right now. And I'm using the fastest lens, aside from one other Chinese lens that's made, that's a 0.85. I'm using the fastest lens from Mitacon, which is the 35 f/0.95 to film this. I cannot achieve the look with this lens that I can with that f2 on the GFX. I cannot. It can come close, but I cannot do it. There are just limitations. And all of these videos that you're seeing of these lenses and these cameras being compared, they normally have to handicap the larger sensored camera in order to match it to this one. And it's a farce. Now, do you have to have a medium format camera? No. Do you need it to get the look of these images that I have here? Yes, you do. And once again, let's go back to the original question in the video. Do you need the 80mm 1.7 from Fuji that was just announced? It's over $2,000. It's going to give you autofocus. It's going to give you really good results, and it's a little bit wider of a lens than this is. But folks, you know that f2 and 1.7 is negligible. It's very small. And in looking at the images, you can barely tell. Now, this is not going to be the same exact look that you would get on the Contax 645. I know that. The 645 negative is much larger than the Fuji medium format is. However, that being said, this is a very similar character. You know, it doesn't change the way the look and feel of this lens is. You'll see it in these pictures. You're going to think that a lot of them are film photos, but they're not. They were taken with a GFX. Yes, they were edited by me. I don't have any custom set of presets that I use or anything like that. You know, I use Capture One. I start color grading in there, and then I do my final touches in Photoshop. If anyone's ever interested in me doing an editing video, let me know. I might consider doing that, but my time has been very limited, and I'm very fortunate to be able to get these videos out for you guys, and this one was a long time coming. If there's any questions that you have about this setup that I haven't covered here, please let me know. I'm a very down-to-earth guy. I love answering questions of stuff that I know. I don't know it all, but I know a little bit about everything when it comes to the GFX. And any information that I have that I can impart to you to make you better or more knowledgeable, I want to do that. There is not enough transparency online about stuff like this, and it's because people are obsessed with making a profit off of it. And now that you know the pieces that you need to make this work with your camera, hopefully you'll consider it. And one last thing about the price. You know, guys, I think if memory serves me correctly, I think that I have less than $300 invested in this setup here. And that's insane that I can get these images for less than that. You know, you might be better suited to get a manual focusing lens made for the GFX, like the Mitacon, the 65 or whatever. That might be your cup of tea if you don't like doing things like this. But what I'm saying is that I would do this investment again. I would do it. I would buy another one if I needed to. I would get another one of these. They make different focal lengths in these. You know, it's not just an 80mm. They typically, for this size of sensor, you need an 80mm or longer of a focal length for this to work. The 110 I've heard is really good. They make a 100, a 120. There's a ton of these, and it wasn't only Schneider that made this lens. You know, there's a brand called ISCO that I've heard that's even better in some instances. There's a lot of disparity about the quality of the lenses, like the quality control that they went through, but generally all of these are top notch. And guys, the optics of Schneider and ISCO, you have to remember these were made to show the highest budget Hollywood films, so this is the best optical quality that was available at the time, and probably, you know, it compares to that today. And they weren't meant to be used on digital sensors, and certainly not meant to be used on cameras. You know, they were meant for projectors, but they're excellent. And when you have the tools like this adapter to be able to put it on the camera and to use it, it's amazing. And I'm probably going to put a clip in here, like just to film a clip over this of the camera, of the act of focusing it, just to show you how, you know, how easy or, well, how hard it is to focus it. It's not really that hard at all. The only thing I would recommend is that sometimes these helicoids, when you get them in, they're a little bit hard to turn. So you might want to use some kind of oil or something to lubricate them to make them turn a little bit easier and have a little bit easier play. And I don't think there's anything else I need to cover with this. I do want to make some videos in the future. Well, very soon, actually. They might be a bit of rants that, well, it's going to be about Fuji's decision making lately. Unfortunately, the cell phone trend has reached the camera market, and Fujifilm has been producing cameras left and right. They've got a new GFX, the 100S, that has just came out, and it looks like an amazing camera. But boy, oh boy, are those GFX 100 users angry. If you guys are members of the Fuji Facebook group, they are pissed. And it's because they have essentially made a smaller, more compact body of the GFX 100 and are selling it for around $4,000 less. And that's nuts. But too bad, I suppose. You know, we're in 2021. You know, this is what's going to happen. And unfortunately, they seem to feel like that they need 100 megapixels now to compete with the full frame guys that are making 50 megapixel cameras now. But anyway, that's for another video. And I'm also going to talk about the nostalgic negative film simulation too, and Fuji's lack of support that they promised us in their little Kaizen strategy that they had. I want to talk about that too. And lastly, before anyone comments and says that I'm being a hater or whatever, look in front of you. Look at this. Look right here. I invested that money into Fujifilm. I'm an investor in them. When I bought this stuff from them, I'm investing in their product. So I have a right to critique them. I'm not an ex-photographer. I'm not getting paid or getting sponsored to say anything about them. So my opinions are my own. And if I don't like some of the things that they do, then tough shit. So have a great day, guys. Thank you for watching the video. Once again, leave me a comment if you have any questions or anything to mention about this. Follow me on social media. I am Vaughn Portrait on Instagram, and you can also find me on Facebook at Corey S. Vaughn. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next one.